All right, friends, buckle up. I think this might be a pretty long one because, wow, is there a lot moving through me right now. So today is day 5. Um, this is completely unnecessary, but we're just gonna pull up zero. I'm at 117 hours and 48 minutes. If you can. So I would say physically, last night was probably the hardest experience that I've had so far. I had a really bad headache last night, um, and it made it really difficult to sleep. And as I would, I'm just going to introduce like a seed that I'm going to get to in a second. I had the thought, uh, today's May 28th, 2025. The new moon was like Monday night into Tuesday. Um, today's Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. Um, so it's like basically there's no moon in the sky, and I had the thought, go to the ocean to to ground and to ground into the sand and just be in nature because I couldn't sleep anyways. I didn't end up doing that. Ended up falling asleep probably around 10 o'clock. No, it was way later than that because I remember I set a timer probably around 9:30 and played some music because I do that if I'm having trouble to falling asleep. I play this like Arcturian frequency, and I set the timer for an hour and a half. This is really not important. I shouldn't get into these details, but whatever. Here we are. um, uh, and the timer went out. Anyways, so it was like probably 11 or maybe even midnight before I fell asleep. Well, I woke up at like 3:30 a.m. My headache had dulled. It was still there, but it wasn't anywhere near as painful. Like the headache I had going to bed was like it was in my jaw. My jaw was manifesting it, and it was like I could feel it in my teeth, like my upper teeth. Like it was pretty intense. Um, so when I woke up and I still had a little bit, it was like way less, but it was still there. And so I just was like Googling fasting headaches, and they said it's a good idea probably to have some salt. So I got some real salt, and I have real salt, and that's like a brand name of salt that's not like table salt or anything. Anyways, so I had some of that and drank some of that, and the headache went away. And I also had some magnesium, and the headache went away. So, and I haven't had a headache all day. Um, so that's been nice. So there's like some details on the physical aspects of the fast, but what's really happening here for me that I want to touch on, and this is where it's probably going to be a pretty long video, is talking about the mental, emotional, and spiritual things that are moving through me right now that feel very profound and also um, related to the reason that I'm doing this fast because it's the reason I'm doing this fast is not just for the physical, it's also for the mental, emotional, and spiritual. So, um, yeah. So I woke up at like 3:30 or 40 or something this morning. And like I said, I kind of was like Googling stuff and I kind of took care of that. And I ended up going to the beach because, again, I had had that thought kind of came to me to go to the beach. And I just, something was saying to me, almost like a calling, but also, if I'm being completely honest, maybe it was like a mental ego thing. But it was this idea of like getting in the ocean at night. And so it was like by the time I left the house, it was like 4:30. So it was 2 hours before sunrise. And I put on my bathing suit just in case I decided that I wanted to do it and to get in. And I went to the beach. And at first, I just sat there and took it in. And I just took in the stars. And um, there was, I think it was Jupiter. I haven't confirmed. I tried to like connect energetically. So I think it was Jupiter, but there was one star planet that was very bright on the horizon, and there was like a cloud over it, and so it was kind of like uh muted, I guess, a little bit, but it was still strong enough to like reflect on the the waves in the sand, like the wetness in the sand, the way that the sunrise does. So it was very bright. It was the brightest thing in the sky, but the rest of the sky, again, there was no moon. So I just kind of watched the stars. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to get in. Like how freeing would it be to face this like fear? For me, it's a fear. I love the water. I love the ocean, but there's something about it that spooks me a little bit. I think it's just the power of it, I would say, especially the ocean, uh, but also just like the depths of it. Like there's just, even I'm thinking back even to like swimming in lakes in Washington and rivers in Washington, and there's just always this like thought kind of like in the back of my mind, like something could swim up from the depths and like grab me and drag me down or something, or bite out of my leg or something, like, because I just don't know what's down there, right? So it's like the depth, it's the power, it's the unknown. And so there's these aspects of water that represent fear to me. And I've been dancing with fear a lot. And especially over the past 3 months. Um, if you don't know, because you're just consuming this, and you're not connected to me in any other way or socially in any other way, um, I transitioned from having like a permanent residence to being a full-time digital nomad. And so that transition has been magical and challenging, um, for me. And so like mentally and emotionally, I would say more than anything. Well, and physically, right? Physically too. Anyways, so I just I just decided that I was gonna do it. And what's really so anyways, so I took my clothes off and I did it naked because it's 4:30. There's no one anywhere. And it's just me and Mother Earth and the ocean. And so I like go in and I'm like, well, let me just go in and like, I don't need to push myself to like go in. Like I can just wade in. This particular beach where I'm at has a pretty long, like flat, it's in the Atlantic Ocean. So I'm in the St. Augustine area. And it like goes out for a bit. Anyway, this is again details you don't need to know probably, but I just like waited, right? And the waves, I didn't realize this until the sunrise. Um, but it was actually pretty choppy. Like the waves were 2 to 4 foot waves, and they were coming pretty rapidly. It was very choppy. I could see there was like, mm, I don't know how to do this. This was the shore. There was waves that were lapping here, and then there was like a little bit of a gap, probably like, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 feet. And then there were waves breaking like out here. And I could see this line of waves because it was like all white caps. It was like not even white caps, but like the folding over of the waves. These were probably like, I would say 3 to 5 foot waves. And I could see that in the dark because it was like white. Anyways, and then there was just like this space. It was like more calm. So like the waves would break and then they would like build and then they would break again closer to the shore. So as I was wading out, right, like these waves were pretty intense and the pull was pretty intense. And the thing is I've been at this beach uh now for almost like 6 days. And then I was here 2 months ago. Um and I didn't get in the water, but I was like feeling the water waiting. And anyways, this morning the pull was like pretty intense. And so anyways, so I'm just like waiting and these waves are crashing and I'm just like, whew, okay, I think I'm spooked. Like this is enough. Like this is like there's power here that also I'm fasting, right? So I'm like, my body is in a weakened state in terms of my physical capacity to exert energy. Um, and so, yeah, anyways, I got spooked and I like backed out and I was like, it's fine, right? Like, none of this is about beating myself up or forcing myself to do anything. A big part of this fast is actually quite literally learning to understand how to stop forcing myself and stop overriding my body. That's one of my intentions for this, and to honor what's present and to not push and force. Um, and this, again, this is part of this was just an experiment. It was just a thought that I kind of had. I wasn't, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody, myself, right? It was just like, maybe let's do this like as a, for me, what felt like in a sense an initiation and a facing of my fears, and also a little bit of like, I don't want to be afraid of nature. um uh Sorry, I saw somewhere, I don't remember who, it was a man, um and he was saying something to the effect of like, he was afraid of like the wilderness in the dark, like the forest in the dark. And so he challenged himself, like, I don't know, I'm gonna butcher it, I don't remember details. I just remember like the impact that it has on me. But he like went out every day in the forest, like not day, every night into the forest to like face his fear basically. And anyways, so that was just kind of like the essence that was like coming up. Um, so I backed out the first time and I just paused and I just checked in with myself. And it was like, I don't want to fear. I don't want to live in fear. And I also don't want to, I definitely don't want to fear nature. So I bowed down. I don't remember actually if I bowed down before the first time I went in or if it probably was before the first time. But anyways, I bowed down because I don't want to fear nature, but I definitely want to respect her and honor her and yield and surrender to her, right? I'm not trying to overcome nature, but I don't want to be afraid of her either. I want to be in partnership with her, be in harmony with her. Um, and so I bowed down and I just prayed and I just asked, I just said, I love you and I thank you and uh, please protect me. And I also asked Archangel Michael and for protection and my guides for protection as well. And I just said, I don't want to fear. I want to trust. I want to trust the universe. I'm going to be okay. And this feels like an example of a way that I can trust. And also just, just for putting it out there, again, the waves were like 2 to 4 feet. It wasn't like this, like the entire time that when I went out yesterday to just I went took Tito for a walk on the beach. It was like glass there, and there were just like ooh, ooh, like these little baby waves, not even white capping, like barely even rolling over, and just very freaking different this morning. Um, and so it's traditionally very calm. This is not a beach that you surf on because the waves don't get big enough, So this is like I'm not in Hawaii where there's like, and I'm just like I'm just gonna go in there with nobody watching me, and so just it's not. Anyways, so I just want to like say that I wasn't being like reckless. Um, I just tangented and lost my point a little bit. Anyways, so I ended up I ended up going back in and I really, I was thinking in my work, I I I'm really coming to understand that like I like the concept of, well, a couple of things. One, fear is not real. If you really think about this, our deepest fears are really around a few core things. One, death. We are a human being and we have a multitude of systems mentally and physically and emotionally that keep us in this matrix, in this game, in this physical reality. It's designed to do that. If we're coming from the perspective, and I always am, this is my belief that my whole channel is spiritually reborn, right? Okay. So we're a soul that is incarnated into a human body. Like human existence is a dream. It's not the real reality. The real reality is like so much greater. And this is just like a tiny, tiny bit, like a tiny part of our soul comes in and lives the human experience, but the greaterness of who we are is eternal and there is no concept of death. Um, so as a human, if you think about it, the fear of death is what allows us to have a human experience. Because if we didn't fear death, then it was like, then it wouldn't be, we wouldn't have a playground to play in. We wouldn't have, you know what I mean? So anyways, at least that's my kind of understanding and perspective as it sits right now. And so it's real. Fear is real in that sense when we have like that primordial protective fear of death. Okay. I think also psychologically we have a fear of not being loved and a fear of not belonging. And I think that part of that is because spiritually we're all connected, we're all one, and that then translates into us being social creatures and us expressing our nature and our love with another person. And um So I think that that's part of the reason, but I do think that another part of that reason, again, leads back to survival, leads back to if I'm not accepted and I'm maybe not loved, but like if I'm not accepted by my tribe, by society, then I will be cast out of the tribe or ostracized. And being cast out of the tribe, again, this is like primordial kind of caveman, like part of our evolutionary survival instinct is that if that happens, that will almost mean certain death because I cannot survive alone. And so those are our like base fear. Like everything comes down to that. All of our mental issues, all of our stories, like it comes down to I'm I might die. And also some like for a lot of people there's a big thing in the collective consciousness of like I'll be homeless. So homeless slash die. um the other thing is not being loved and not being accepted. Pretty much I feel like everything can be boiled down to like those three big things. Anyways, that's a little bit of a tangent, but the thing is I don't want to fear death because death is not death. Death is exactly like, again, I right now in the past, probably really in the past 4 to 6 weeks, really probably in the past like 8 to 12 weeks, beginning this whole transition, like as I was packing up my apartment and ending that chapter of my life to like where I am now, I have been in a very big like death portal, death and rebirth cycle. And so physical death is not, it's the death of this experience, but then there's a rebirth into a new experience. And so when as I'm practicing deepening my spirituality and I'm practicing deepening my relationship to the infinite, and also like the depth, like the void, the can I be nothing, can I be no thing, right? Joe Dispenza work kind of coming in here, but also this is like I think in many ways a spiritual concept too, because again we have an ego, the very mechanism that allows us to have a human experience that is finite, that is attached to this human life. But then there's this whole other big part of our soul, again, that is eternal. And so when we uh, cling to this and attach to this too much, then it mm, so far in my experience, it kind of limits entering into the vastness of the infinity and the eternal, because that's scary. Again, when I think about the ocean, right, like the sheer depth of it is like, wow, it's humbling, right? It's like, I am so fragile and so tiny. Wow. So I told you this is going to be a long one. Okay. So I'm sitting there, pretty much all of this is going through my mind as I'm sitting there. And I'm like, I don't want to be afraid of death because death is just going to be another portal. And I don't need to fear that. If anything, it's probably going to be an easier experience on the other side. So, oh, thank you, tea. That's delicious. So anyways, the other thing that came up was um, how when we overthink, we're giving more energy to that to that fear and it expands it. So I was like thinking and I was like, you know what? I just need to fucking do it. And so I did. So I stopped thinking and I was like, I'm just gonna, like, I ran in there and to like push past the initial like waves that were closest to the shore to get to that like flat spot. Um, and and I did. And I pushed past and then I got to that flat spot and I just like whoo got all the way in. Hello. Excuse me. Um, I like went under and like did a couple of strokes and then uh as I was swimming, I realized I couldn't touch the bottom anymore and I was like, all right, I'm good. That's good for me. I don't want to be out here where I can't touch the bottom um because I just don't want to. So I was like I wasn't panicking, but my heart was racing and I was like, yeah, this is pretty uncomfortable. So I wasn't like out there chilling. Also, again, like the conditions were pretty high energy. There was a lot of movement going on and like I'm out there alone. It's 4:30 in the morning. Um it's pitch fucking black, like, right? So like I wasn't trying to stay out there anyways. And so I just like started swimming inshore and then I got to a place where I could touch and I came back out. Oh, okay. So I forgot to mention before I went in, I was like, universe, give me a sign that this is safe. Like give me a shooting star or something, or like something that's, or just something that's going to signal like I should do this. And it didn't happen. But when I came back out the second time and I was sitting there was a shooting star. And it just felt really, it just felt really nice. And so I stayed out there until the sun came up. Um, as the light started coming up and I started seeing how intense the water was, um, again, and this is from my perspective, okay? I'm not a surfer. I love the ocean, but I've never really lived in a lifestyle where I went to the ocean on a regular, consistent basis. Even right now, like when I have a sit that's close to the ocean, I will go. But I'm just not a very like experienced in the ocean person. I'm not scuba trained. Like I'm not a tip. Anyways, just meaning that like to somebody who is a surfer or a scuba diver or who goes swimming every single day in the ocean, that's probably not something that they would be afraid of. But like for me, it was intense. And so as the light was coming up and I saw, wow, this is actually the most activity that I've seen on this beach in like the 2 weeks pretty much that it's a 5 minute walk to the beach. So I go to the beach nearly every day that I'm here. And I've never seen it. Like it's always been even more calm, which again is part of the reason why I was like, yeah, it's not going to be a big deal if I go out in the middle of the night. It's pretty calm water on this beach. And so, um, I was like, wow, I'm kind of impressed that I did that because seeing this, I wouldn't get in. Like not by myself, like not if there were other people like close by, again, I feel safer because if something were to happen, there would be other people around that could witness that, but um by myself, I probably wouldn't have got in. I probably just would have stayed on the beach and yeah. And so I was like, damn, that's pretty impressive. Like that's more intense than I even recognized in the dark. Um, I don't know if I felt like proud of myself, but I felt like, hmm, I don't know. I don't know the word. Um, Maybe like appreciative or just like I just acknowledged myself. I just acknowledged like that was pretty cool that I did that and that I like took the courage and I faced my fear and I did it. And um it just felt really special and really sacred. Anyways, so that was the experience that I had this morning. And then I just had a really chill rest of the morning. No physical symptoms. I watched the Memoirs of a Geisha because that was on the thing. Thought I would end up taking a nap, but never did. So my energy has been pretty stable and good today, despite getting like 4, 5, or 6 hours of sleep. Not much sleep. And um, had one client call. Anyways, something else happened that I wanted to talk about that I think is also relevant to it's also relevant to why I decided to do this fast. And again, I've been going through a death and rebirth cycle, which is so, gosh, it's just such a beautiful theme of my life. I literally have a course called Spiritually Reborn. Like basically my whole brand is Spiritually Reborn. This channel is called Spiritually Reborn. My Instagram handle is Renata Reborn, I'm pretty sure. Like it's just, in fact, Renata means rebirth. Anyways. So it's just a very precious theme in my life. There's an airplane that's like was just going like brr, like at a pretty steep angle. He leveled out now, but I was just like, whoa, what the fuck is that? Anyways, um, so in October of last year, I met someone, a man. I'm hetero. I'm like a cis. I'm like the most basic. Okay, I'm like the most basic. Uh, so, um, unexpectedly, I was on um, I actually had I needed a break from work. I was experiencing compassion fatigue at the time. I was living in Charleston, South Carolina. Um, and Hurricane Helene had just came through and went up and like destroyed Western North Carolina and the whole greater Asheville area. And um, I never experienced anything like this, but I felt the collective sense of tragedy and loss and grief and shock and fear and like I just felt it for like weeks um after that happened. But also I like a year prior, I lived an hour and a half away from Asheville. I went to that area a lot. 3 months prior to Helene, I was in Chimney Rock. I was at a restaurant in Chimney Rock, and Chimney Rock just got blown off not blown off, but like flooded off the face of the earth. It was just tragic and traumatic. And so that happened. And then I noticed in my work as a mental health coach, I was doing mental health coaching at the time, that I had a very, like, it was very difficult for me to talk about like some of the more mundane minutia that people have issues with on a psychological level when like so many people died, so many people lost their homes in an instant. And it was like, we're going to sit here and talk about your anxiety and your stress, like your work stress, because your boss is annoying, right? Like it was just something, and not to diminish that at all, right? This is my line of work. I love it. But at that moment in time, it was just something where I noticed that I was compassionate fatigued and I needed to step away and I needed a break. And I had seen a Facebook post that one of the local businesses in Western North Carolina had posted and was saying like, hey, we really depend on fall tourism in this area. And here are all of the towns that weren't hit as bad as Asheville and like Chimney Rock and like some of the places that were hit really bad, that are still open and would still really benefit from your um, business, from your tour, from your fall tourism. And at the time also, this is also really special, right? So this like all leads into this. And oh my gosh, we're at like 36 minutes. Okay. We're going to see if I can stick to the main points here. But um, I had also started this month, in October of 2024, the Wild Wealthy Feminine program with Lauren of Love is like her brand name. I don't actually know what her last name is like officially, but amazing. Okay. If you ever have the opportunity to work with this woman, oh, she's so good. Oh my God, she's so good. Anyways, very, very powerful, sacred, deep work. And this was like week one, I'm pretty sure. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a long weekend and I'm going to go up there. I found a yurt in Coolowee, North Carolina. And I said, I'm going to go, I'm going to give like some money to in my, accommodations and the meals and stuff that I'm going to have. And it's also going to give me like a nice break to just tune into myself and do some of the work that's associated with this program. And I did that. And that's why I was up in that area. And so I go up there, I'm just going up there by myself. I'm going up there to connect to nature. I'm going up there to heal the land. I'm going up there to contribute my tourism dollars to the towns that would still greatly benefit from it. And this is about me like taking a rest, taking a break, recalibrating, recentering, healing, doing the deep inner work that I, you know, was focused on at that time. And boy, the Airbnb owner has a son who was in his like late 20s or something. And um, he was around to kind of like he helped like kind of guide me to where the spot was. And anyways, the the day I checked in at night, right? Check-in is usually always in the evening. So I checked in around like 5 or 6 o'clock on Friday. I think it was Friday. And the very next day, I was like just out and about, and um, he comes over and he has a friend with him, right? And so like I was just like kind of walking to the bathroom, and again, this is too many details, but um like him and his friend, in walking to the bathroom, I became like visible to him and his friend. Anyway, so he kind of like hollers at me and is like, hey, we were going to go down to the river and I just wanted to invite you in case you wanted to go kind of explore around the river. And I was like, yeah, actually that sounds amazing, because I've been doing work all morning, like my deep work, not professional work, but like my interpersonal work. And I really wanted to get out into nature. And I was like, perfect. What a perfect timing. So I am like, all right, give me a few minutes. I'm going to go like get ready, uh, and I'll come back out and then we can go. And so I do. And as I come out, and I'm like, okay, like ready to go, and his friend comes out from like the other side of the truck and walks up to me and sticks his hand out and says, "Hi, I'm not going to name his name here actually because I just don't want to." Um, and it's not my place to like put this story out on the internet, you know what I mean? Anyways, so um, it was in that moment, there was like, I don't know, I guess a spark. And um, it was beautiful. So we go down the river and yeah, I just want to say like, I guess it's like one thing. No, there's like two more things I want to say, but we go down to the river and I'm just kind of like exploring around. They were actually like, they were going down there that they were building like another kind of tiny house along the river for fishermen. Um, and so I'm like exploring around and I was like, hey, like I'm gonna try to gather some firewood, blah, blah, blah. And the the guy who would come up and introduce himself was like, "Oh, do you need firewood? Like, I can definitely get you some firewood." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that would be amazing." And like in that exchange, it was just like I felt something about him. Like I just felt so seen, and I just felt so like, I just get to be in my feminine energy and be taken care of. And it just felt really amazing. And again, so like there was this like with the firewood for me, it just felt like there was kind of like this other spark. And anyways, so I ended up inviting them to the fire that I made. And we, yeah, for like 6 hours, it was probably like six or seven at night until 3 o'clock in the morning. All three of us, and then actually the actual Airbnb owner ended up coming um, over to the fire, and it was just amazing. It was like, it was just, we were humans having this fire, and we were like, well, I was a stranger, they all knew each other, but like we were just talking and sharing stories, and just, it was amazing. And the more that this guy that I had this like spark with, that I felt there was a spark, like the more that he was talking, it was just like I just wanted to know more. Like there was like this wild, like honestly, like I'm not trying to be crazy, but like it felt a little bit like some of like the dynamics in the Twilight movie series, right? Where Edward is like basically infatuated with Bella. Is that her name? I think so. Uh because he can't read her, and it wasn't that, but it was just like, oh my god, I'm just so interested in who you are, I just want to know more. Like I remember making a concerted effort to like include the other people at the fire because I was just asking this guy questions and like wanting to learn more. And as the night went on, it just felt so weird to me that like we were not together, and we were not close, and we were not touching, and we were not like together. There was just a soul recognition of like this, like, I don't know how else to describe it. Every part of my being feels, even right now, that we have had many lifetimes being together before. And so I don't know if this is a soulmate connection. I don't know if this is a twin flame connection. I feel like there's, I don't even know, right? There's such a spectrum. Some people say that twin flames are so super rare that everybody thinks that they have a twin flame, but like it's not really that. But then everybody freaking talks about twin flame. And so it's like, I don't even fucking know. Like, I have no clue. Really, it doesn't matter. I just know that there's a soul connection that's very deep and very like well treaded, or like that's not the right phrasing, but like uh it's not like something I'm starting to see energy as like uh bands, almost like bands, or if you think of like a web, right? There's like points connecting, nodal points, and then there's like a connecting, and so when you're creating something or giving energy to something when it's brand new, there's like the band is like very thin, that it's not very well established, right? You're just starting to make that connection between those 2 points. But the more experience that you have and the more repetition that you have, like the thicker and the wider and the stronger that band gets, So our energetic soul level band is like, it's established, okay? Um, anyways, where am I going with this? It was just the experience that I was having. I've never had this experience. Again, I don't know what it is officially. It doesn't really matter. He ended up leaving. We didn't exchange information at all. I was not in a place. I was living with my ex-boyfriend at the time. I was not dating. I was not looking for someone to date. I was focused on myself and my business at the time. And like, I just was not planning this. This was divinely orchestrated. There was no conscious intention whatsoever from my mind. Sidebar, I did feel him coming months before. I felt him coming months before in like June, July, and then I felt like in October, like I was going to meet someone that's going to be really important. Um, he was and is to my being. Anyways, so the next morning we had like briefly talked about, it's not just like me and this guy. Um, again, there was like no like exchange or anything. And so I was just kind of trusting that like he would come back to the property. Again, he like lived somewhere else. So this wasn't his property. He was just a friend like helping out. And so I was just trusting that he would come back. And then the morning kind of went on. So I just like was sitting in ceremony with myself that morning because like nothing was kind of transpiring. And then ended up going for a hike because again, like nothing was transpiring. But that morning when I was in ceremony, something really interesting happened. And it was like I had, I was meditating and I had this like very deep, almost like soul memory, or maybe it was a past life memory. I don't really know, but it was just kind of like this essence of feeling lost and disconnected from my tribe and my partner. And I had this like howling sorrow, like this like primal, wild, like wolf, like sobbing howl at like how painful it was to be disconnected from my family, from my tribe, and from my partner. And it wasn't like, it was triggered, I think, by meeting this person, but this was like some other lifetime. This wasn't this lifetime. So that was very interesting. Anyways, so at the end of that next day, I basically freaked out and was like, I cannot handle not seeing this person again. I just, there's something here and I really want to see this person again. So I scoured the internet for probably 2 hours. Um, I lit a fire and like just sat by the fire and was trying to like find this person. I only knew his first name, and bits of information that came through in our conversation from the night before. And that was it. So it was like, and also the name is very common, like John, right? Um, and so, or like John or uh, Bob or um, what's another common name? David, right? Like all those like biblical names that are all over the place. So it wasn't like it was a unique name. Like if you search for Renata, there's some stuff that comes up, but not like if you search for Ashley anyways. So it was difficult. And finally, I found him and I reached out and he didn't get back to me for like 4 days. Anyways, he did. So we ended up connecting and there was definite like chemistry, and I don't even know if I want to say chemistry, but like attraction and connection. And it was pretty powerful. And we were exchanging a lot in talking together and sharing videos together. And it was like, I really want to come see you again. And so we arranged, we lived, I think, 4 hours apart. Um, and we arranged trips to come and see one another. And for the next 8 weeks or so, we were seeing each other like every other week. And it was really special, but it was also, there were parts of it that were really triggering for me. There were aspects of it that reminded me of my relationship with my ex-husband, in terms of just there not being like emotional safety and emotional regulation. Um, and like just conflict that was like from out of nowhere. Like this whole thing was like brand new and it was like something would happen and it would trigger him. And then there was kind of like an eruption of emotion. And I was just like, whoa, where is this coming from? Like, we're very new. Like there's not been a history established enough of like, to make this like the reaction doesn't fit like what just happened, right? Or like what our dynamic is. It just didn't make sense. And that spooked me because the reason I got divorced was because there was there was mental and emotional turmoil and illness that my ex-husband was going through that was undiagnosed, unacknowledged, I think pridefully not wanting to be acknowledged and therefore not wanting to be healed or interested in being healed. And that for me was a signal to get out because I wasn't going to continue to be abused because they didn't want to acknowledge that they needed mental and emotional help and healing. Again, there's a stigma around this still, and especially for men, there's a huge pride thing, right, that goes around it. And I'm not saying like good, bad, whatever. It just kind of generally is what it is. And it's getting better and it's amazing. And when I work with my male clients, oh my gosh, I love it so much because I'm like, oh, yes, it's just so delicious. I love it. I'm like so thankful to any man that is like, yeah, I want to talk to someone. I want to work on my mental health. I want to work on understanding how I'm showing up in my relationships and in my work and in my life. It's just so beautiful. So is the sunset right now. Hello. Um, So here I am with this person that I have a really deep connection with. And from my perspective, there's some mental and emotional healing that needs to be done. And um, anyways, fast forward to uh, January of this year. We end up basically having a blowout fight. I get spooked for basically the last time, and I just was like, don't fucking talk to me. Like, I am not doing this shit. Um, I need to focus on me. I need to stay focused in my business. Um, and I think one of the things that might have triggered it too, but I don't really know, I'm never gonna know, is I had let him know at the beginning of the year, like I really anchored into what am I creating this year? Um, because I've been trying to get my business off the ground in some form or another since 2021 and have been largely unsuccessful in making it my full-time job, like making it something that sustains me financially. It even allows me to thrive financially. And there's lots of reasons for that. And I love the journey so far. But this year I was like, I'm making this happen. Like I'm figuring out whatever block has held me back, and I am busting through it. And so I decided that this year I was going to commit to myself. I was not going to be distracted by a relationship. Not that relationships are distracting, but I had gotten out of a relationship, a 3-year relationship the year prior, and I just, like I said, I was living with my ex-boyfriend at the time. Um, and I just needed to be with me. And um, also a part of that is figuring out why I haven't found my partner yet, which is all I've wanted since I was a child. Um, because I didn't grow up in a loving, with I grew up with divorced parents. And so I wanted more than anything to have a healthy, happy family. And so here I was, 33 at the time, and I'm divorced, and I, the first long-term relationship outside of my divorce, uh, I ended up needing to leave because it was healthy and that was nice, but I was settling and I was in that relationship for the wrong reasons. Um, and so I really wanted to spend this year looking at why is that, there's a common denominator here, and well, that's me. So let's explore this a little bit maybe. So so I had told him that in January, and like a couple weeks into January, we had a blowout, and that's when I was like, I need to take a break. I need to step away for a little bit. And that, yeah, again, it just caused a blowout. And so we didn't talk until a couple months later when it was my birthday, and he reached out, and then it was like we were talking again, kind of trying to like reestablish a connection a little bit, and then ended up having another blowout fight because I was like trying to resolve why we had a blowout fight in the beginning. And again, it just didn't go well. Again, this is like, it's really not, it's really, really not a judgment, but if someone doesn't have the emotional capacity or hasn't done like mental and emotional healing from trauma, then it's very difficult for them to have conversations that don't result in conflict because they get triggered, and the trauma, the protector part that's protecting the exile is really like leading the charge and with like spikes and armor, and it's just it's very difficult to find understanding and find reconciliation and anyways, so we blew up again. uh and this was like, again, my birthday, like a week after my birthday, or less than that even, I think. And then the week after, I started my digital nomad journey. And pretty much during that time, that was very emotional for me, like the week leading up to, and then really the week after. It's like starting into it was pretty intense, and it was like we just weren't talking. And anyways, so we slowly ended up talking, I don't know, maybe in April of some time. And I was like, hey, like, I'd like to see you, because I think that just a lot of this could like hit the reset button if we came and like saw each other physically. Um, and the first time I tried, it didn't end up working out. Um, and anyways, so finally last week I saw him. I know this is long-winded. Part of this is me documenting and capturing this for me. And so maybe if someone is watching this, it will be helpful, but there's an important, I think, lesson coming up here that I'm going to get to eventually, but I just needed to give a little bit of backstory. um, so ended up seeing him last week, and I was with him for a couple of nights. By the way, I didn't make this clear. In the time that we were seeing each other, we were sleeping together. Um, and we never had the conversation really about what is the, like, we never had the dating label container situation. Like, we never had really conversations around that. However, there were a lot basically of like innuendos and pointing tos and uh like periphery suggestions, like pointing to that, right? There's a very palatable connection. And um so sorry, hold on, I just lost my thought for a second. I just wanted to make it clear that like we were in a situationship, okay? And so which, as I was going through it, did not think that. As I was going through it, I was just like having fun. I was really enjoying getting to know this person. And I think I said that, but I was having fun. I was enjoying myself, and I was enjoying him, and I was enjoying our adventures and our time together. And so I wasn't really concerned about like what this is. And I was also just trusting, like, we're vibing, right? Like, I don't need this to be anything. And also, I'm not really trying to date. I'm still living with my ex-boyfriend. Like, so I myself wasn't like rushing it into anything. But I think that also with that, I was like not fully even being honest with myself about how I was feeling. And in hindsight, I wish I would have expressed that more, because I think if I was, then maybe I would have surrendered any ideas that I had and opened my heart instead of trying to control and force my reality. And recognize the gift that was in front of me and be open to that. But I have struggled with boundaries. and people pleasing in the past. And I just didn't, I was afraid. I was afraid. And so when I saw him last week, I was kind of coming from that same place of like, hey, we have had a connection and it's been rocky and we've been pretty disconnected all year, like for 5 months, almost 6 months now. But like, I'm just like trusting this still. And so I slept with him again. And he's been the only person that I've slept with since I slept with him the very first time. And the reason I slept with him is because I had a connection to him, a deep connection to him. And listen, everyone is on their own sexual journey and I have no judgment. And there are some people that just like love to go out there and get some strange. I am not one of those people. I tried. I was in New Orleans a couple of years ago and there was, I had an opportunity, and I just didn't. I'm just not into it, right? I need that like soul, emotional, some kind of like mental, some kind of connection before I feel safe to open my body to that really like sacred exchange. And so anyways, I did. And I had to work a little bit while I was there visiting him, and he gave me his phone for a hotspot because there wasn't any Wi-Fi. And so it was just like sitting there. I didn't go through it or anything, but like you have notifications that pop up and like there's like it's dinging, 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 and it's popping up and there's this like woman's name. And I just was like, all right, whatever. Like we haven't been connected. We've never had a conversation about being exclusive. Like it's no big, like whatever. Like I don't know what's going on with his life and I'm not, it's not my place. We're not dating. And this was after we had slept together. And so I again, I was like, okay, whatever. Well, then we were laying in bed that night and um and he was texting her while he was laying next to me. I'm the kind of person that I need time to process things. I can have an experience and an exchange in the moment, and it doesn't necessarily register with me until I have time and space to process it and reflect on it. I'm a projector in the human design system, and I've seen in places that like that's kind of like a very common trait of projectors. Don't know. Doesn't really matter. I just know that that's how I work. And so in the time I was again, I just really wanted to come from this place of unconditional love and like, he's been out where he's been and, everyone gets lonely and you got to do what you got to do. And it's really not my business because we haven't been connected and we've never had the conversation about being exclusive or anything like that, or even dating or being official. So I really don't have a foot to stand on anyways. But I think it stung a little bit. Anyways, I was only there for a couple of nights, and as I was like reflecting on that experience, I realized I'm pretty sure I'm in love with this person. I'm pretty sure that I had an experience of love at first sight, if it's really ever been, if that's really a thing. And there was just an instant spark. There was an instant soul recognition. There was this, our whole connection was just the most profound that I've experienced in my whole life. And it was so beautiful, so beautiful. And so I was writing this letter to him a couple of days after I had seen him, and I wrote him a love letter. I wrote him a letter confessing my love, and I just said, look, like, listen, I don't think I've really been honest with myself, and therefore haven't really been honest with you about how I really feel, and yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm in love with you, and I'm pretty sure that not naming that before, or recognizing that before, or allowing myself to feel that before because I was afraid to, has kind of been a big component of probably some of our miscommunication, and just hasn't helped anything. And anyways, so then I sent him a message and I said, hey, I know in the past I've kind of like dumped a lot on you. Like, listen, where are we at? An hour and 11 minutes, okay? So I carry a lot of energy, and I have a lot of depth, and I have a lot of different perspectives and things that weave into things. And so, yeah, when I'm in relationships, I just have a lot of thoughts, and I have a lot of emotions, and I reflect very deeply on things, and I share very deeply on things. And sometimes that can be overwhelming, especially for someone that doesn't really have a lot of emotional capacity or availability. So in the past, when I've like just sent things, it's kind of like not been well received. So I kind of learned the lesson of like, oh, I need to check for consent, and make sure that like there's a safe container for me to express like big feelings and big things, right? There's nothing wrong with that too. That's not even, I just want to say, like, that's doesn't even have to happen for someone who's like, you know, at emotional capacity. That's also just, I think, a common courtesy that I just need to learn in general. So I texted him and I just said, hey, I have a letter for you, and I can give it to you in a couple of weeks, because we were talking about me going back to stay with him in a couple of weeks. And then I said, or I could read it to you, but either way, like, just let me know, because I I want you to be in a space where you could receive it. And I didn't tell him what it was about. I just said, I have a letter. And so he's like, yeah, you can give it to me when I see you again. And I said, okay, I'll hold on to it because it's not going anywhere. And so this was now last Friday. And on Sunday, I was texting him some stuff and sharing things, and he just wasn't really responsive. He was like reacting to my messages, but he wasn't responding to them. And then he did the next day. He like said good morning or something, and we had like a small exchange. And I think part of the exchange was about the beach, like a beach picture or something that I had sent him, that I had shared with him. And he's like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I'm low key jealous or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I really wish that like I was in a place financially, and that like I could hire you to work with me, and we could just like be on these adventures together. It would be so fun. And just like capture the beauty of the world and experience it. I love what I'm doing, but it is inherently a little bit lonely, because unlike being single, when you're rooted in a community where you are surrounded by friends and you like have things that you go do, and parts of the community that you're aligned with, being on the road, and solo, like I don't have any of that, and I have still met people and socialized and gone out and and so that's been nice, but it's not like established relationships that help you to just feel connected, and feel like you have some sort of rooting. Why did I bring that up? Wow, I don't remember. Um, oh, right. Like, so it would be nice to like have a partner, I didn't even say partner. I just said like, have any, like have you as a friend even to like do these adventures. And he didn't respond. And he still hasn't responded, and this is like 2 days ago now, right? And so like, and then the day before that he didn't really respond to my messages either. He just kind of reacted to them. So again, even on a friend's level, and really at this point we had slept together a few days prior, so like a friends with benefits level, it's like I'm not really getting an exchange. It feels really one-sided. And today, so again, so bringing back to some of the things that are moving through today. I know this is so long-winded. I don't imagine that like anyone is probably ever going to watch this, but whatevs. Actually, it's like labeled on my fasting day, so whatever. I gave warning at the beginning that this was going to be a long one, okay? So also, if you're still here, like, oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you for witnessing me. Wow. You're an angel and definitely part of my soul family. Thank you. Thank you. So let's get into so now we're getting into, maybe I should like mark this on, what am I at? 116, almost 117. So maybe I'll mark this as like, this is an important lesson so that people don't have to necessarily listen to the whole story that I went into far too much detail about. Maybe someone will really like it. Anyways, so today I was feeling kind of like WTF a little bit, because here I was, had just kind of like reunited with this person, and for me that reignited our connection, and I felt it, and for me it was like a recognition of like, oh my gosh, I love this person. I'm pretty sure I'm in love with this person. Whew. Oh shit. Like, and the exchange that I was getting was almost like the opposite for him. It like I mean, I can't say for him, but like the way that I was receiving it was like, you're basically not responding to my messages. They're pretty short. I say something and then you don't respond for 2 days, like, and who knows how much longer, like very opposite of the experience that I'm having, where it's like, I'm pretty sure I'm in love with you. And so that basically means that, yeah, I want to like deepen our connection. And for like, it felt from, on my perspective, like he was going in the opposite direction. And so that's kind of how I was feeling. And so I just was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the stalker. Okay. So I go on his Instagram and I look at his followers and I look for the name of the woman's name that I saw on the phone. And sure enough, there they are. And, they're following each other. And, it just kind of sank in. One, it's very like, this person, even though we had just come together and just slept together, like there's clearly some kind of connection that he has with someone else. And So he's seeing someone else in some capacity. Don't know what that is. No clue. Um, it's also quite possible he's not interested in me, like at all. Or just interested in my body or something. I don't really know. Um, but it just was like sinking in, he's moved on. All of the evidence points to that, like he's just moved on. So then I just kind of had, again, like it just sunk in, and I cried because I was sad. And I cried because I was angry. And I cried because I felt stupid. And I say that like felt stupid with, like, I felt like a fool in love. I felt like I was yeah, like stupid, not in a critical way. I mean, it inherently sounds like it's critical, but just kind of like, wow, I have really, I think, in many ways, forced this to be a thing, and tried and pushed to reconnect and keep it alive. And in my perspective, like, again, it's kind of been one-sided. Like, I'm the one that's like, hey, like, I want to make this thing happen, and the effort is just like not really reciprocated, or at least it doesn't feel like it from my perspective. And it was just kind of like this, you know realization for me that I had been selling myself short. I had been, once again, settling for something that is not what I want. I don't want this wishy-washy energy. I don't want this hot and cold energy. I don't want this, like, here's this really deep thing that I'm going to say to you that's really profound and is definitely signaling that I see myself with you long term, and then I'm not going to talk to you for weeks on end, or I'm not going to text you back for days on end. Like it's just, whoa. And here I am, and I'm like, oh, but I want this to work, right? Like I think you're amazing, and I really want this to work, so I'm going to keep showing up. And it's like, I have basically been chasing this dude. I've basically been chasing him. And so I just had the realization of like, oh my fucking God. Oh my God. Renata, you're the prize. What if? What if one of the reasons, and I say one of because, it's not all black and white, and it's, we're complex. There's multiple dimensions and multiple layers to why things are the way that they are. But what if one of the reasons that a lot of my relationships have failed is one, basically because I'm not really have ever really been fully anchored into my feminine energy, and I do this chasing, people pleasing, let me try to fix it, let me try to bend and contort and make it work, and I come out of my energy and into their energy and try to make it work. And it's like I'm doing the pursuing. And it's like the reason I'm doing the pursuing is, one, again, it's a little bit messy here for me because I really want this. This is a big dream of mine, is to have a family and a healthy, loving, happy family. And so I have to be mindful of, like, if I'm overriding red flags, or if I'm overriding my own boundaries or my own values, or if I'm ignoring compatibility, right? And like getting swept up in the emotion of it, but not like balancing that with the logic of it. Also, I'm a Pisces, so like I'm an inherent like dreaming, romantic, like emotional person. So that also like gets messy for me. Or just like tricky to discern sometimes. And so I kind of just realized like in not anchoring into my worth and my value and my non-negotiables in a relationship, like I need to feel emotionally safe and secure in a relationship, and really like not only in a romantic relationship but also in friendships, right? That really all relationships, all of them, my clients, my business, my, anyone that I'm associating with, like it needs to feel emotionally and mentally safe. And that doesn't mean no conflict ever, but it it means that we're both giving each other the benefit of the doubt, and that we're leading with love, and that we are working towards a solution together when there is conflict or disagreement or misunderstanding. And when that's not the case in the past, I've just continuously overridden that. And I think a big part of that is because I have denied my self-worth, and I have denied my value, and I have not stayed strong and firm in my boundaries around that. And I constantly overstep my boundaries to try to fix it and to try to hold the emotional weight and do the emotional work for the whole relationship all on my own, and just excused the lack of accountability for them taking care of themselves and their own mental health and their own growth and evolution. And I just overstep it, and I'm like, it's fine. Like, we can get past that. We can overcome that, right? It like, and let me overstep my own boundaries and ignore my own needs in relationship to help you do that, which is exactly what I did in my marriage. This very like self-sacrificing, self-abandoning pattern. And so that's what it really, really like the other big thing that has been moving through and that I've captured today, is just this deep recognition of that pattern. And I'm just, again, this person is such a gift to me, and I do love them. But I made a little video for them, just for them, but really for me, where I just like vented, and I just said, I love you, but I'm done with this. I'm done with this dynamic. I'm not doing it anymore. From here on out, like, we are purely friends. You will not be accessing my sacred, I don't know what I could say on YouTube, but like, my sacred yoni, my yaya, my sacredness, right? That is sacred. Okay? That's sacred. I'm sacred. I'm worthy of the love that I give. I'm worthy of the characteristics of being a partner that I know that I am. And if I'm not at the very least getting back what I'm putting in, then that is like, move along, sis. Like, you don't need to be putting up with anything less, right? Like, my partner needs to be my equal or better. And if they're better, then that gives me an opportunity and a challenge to rise to be better, right? And if we're equal, then that tells me that we've both done the inner work that needs to be done to be conscious partners, to be loving, heart-centered, soul aligned, soul-led partners, right? And we're leading with love, and we're not leading with trauma. We're not leading with the unconscious, we're conscious, right? And we're aware, and we take accountability, and we value growth, and we value learning, and we value feedback, and we want to give feedback and be open to feedback so that we can learn about each other's needs and each other's preferences and desires and our boundaries so that we can respect them and we can support one another in just the most uplifting and beautiful and supportive and life-giving and encouraging and just delicious way, right? That's the relationship that I want. And I'm not getting that from this person. I want that from this person, but I'm drawing the boundary. I didn't leave my marriage, which was the most difficult decision I've ever made in my whole life, even now to date, to settle again for something that is less than what I know I deserve and what I know I'm worth. And I didn't leave my last partner that I was settling with to come settle for something else in a different form. And that just felt really, really powerful for me, really, really transformative for me. And I just declared to myself, and I made a little bit of video about it because I kind of capture these videos. I make videos because I don't know how to talk to this guy. Again, we don't have like an emotionally safe space, so I've just like kind of captured a lot of my thoughts and feelings in videos, and I just thought, well, one day if it comes to it, then I can share some of these kind of as just a testament to my ongoing connection even when we've been disconnected. And so I captured it and I spoke it to him like in the video form, and I just and I said, I'm not done with you, but I'm done with this dynamic that we have had. And basically, my man and my partner is going to treat me and see my value and my worth and treat me as such and respect me as such. And that could be you, right? Like that could be you still, but there needs to be some acknowledgement and accountability of what's your end of this dynamic, right? It takes two. There's a lot of things that I did along the way, in case that isn't clear in my recollection of things here, but like I was caught in my own fear loops that contributed to this. So I'm not saying I'm like, this isn't about placing blame. It's just about this. I had this situationship with this person that I felt a very, very deep and strong soul connection with, that really felt like this person came into my life, was divinely guided into my life. I still believe that right now. And I wanted it to be like, oh my gosh, you're my life partner. Where have you been in my life? Oh, I'm so happy that you're here finally. Like, let's start the rest of our life, but maybe that's not the reason that he came into my life. Maybe the reason that he came into my life is so that I could have this realization, that I could finally heal this pattern, and I could finally love myself enough to say, I am worth the relationship that I was describing earlier, right? Like I am worth that treatment, and I value myself enough and I love myself enough to not settle for anything less than that. And that's very, very profound, and that's very, very big. And that has taken me my whole life to get to. And so if I never end up with this person, yeah, I'm going to be sad because, oh my gosh, I love them. They're so amazing. They're so special. They're so unique. They're so rare. Oh, we just have so much magic together. Oh, it's so beautiful. But if I just have the experiences that I've had with this person and that was it, that's fine. Either way, they've been a gift to me. And this right here in it itself is a gift, right? The form didn't necessarily work out the way that I wanted it to, but it worked out the way that I needed it to. And that's a really important, I think, also kind of universal lesson for all of us. You know, the Rolling Stones song, you don't always get what you want, you get what you need. And when it comes to manifestation and it comes to us controlling our life, you know, we always want our life to go the way that we want our life to go, but it doesn't always go that way. Obviously, of course, right? But it goes the way that we need it to go. If we allow ourselves to take a step back and say, why is this here? Why is this showing up this way? Why isn't it going the way that I want it to go? And rather than get wrapped up in a story of like basically a temper tantrum that our precious baby ego throws, it's like, man, this didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and I'm just going to be mopey and in self-pity and sad about it. And I'm saying all of this because I have done this like over and over and over again in my life, okay? So like, rather than going into that though, this like when we can open up and say, oh, there's medicine here for me. There's something really important in this experience for me, for my evolution, for my healing, and for my growth, for my embodiment of the truth of who I am, for the embodiment of where I'm going. And where I'm going, I need to believe in myself. I need to believe in my value. I need to believe in my worth. I need to believe in my gifts and my presence and the wholeness and the truth of who I am. And if I'm allowing people, if I'm allowing myself to feel small because of the way that someone else is treating me, then again, I'm self-abandoning, I'm self-neglecting, I'm allowing someone else's opinion and treatment of me to be more important than my own authority and opinion and treatment of myself. And so being willing to look at, this is a painful experience, a really painful experience. And at the same time, there's a lesson here. And for me, this lesson is all about honoring my self-worth, honoring what I deserve, honoring and recognizing who I am, honoring my value, choosing to love myself and say, hey, this doesn't feel the way that you want it to feel. This isn't happening the way that you want it to happen. And despite your efforts to want it to bloom in that way and trying to express that that's the direction that you want to go in, it's not being reciprocated. And you can't control that. You got to let that go. And so that's what I did. And I said, I got to honor myself. So very long. We're probably at like 2 hours now. Holy cow. Those people that have like 3-hour long podcasts, I get it now. Oh my God, I get it now. At least theirs are probably like more structured. But anyways, in summary, 2 big things. Facing your fear. Facing your fear head on. The only way to get through fear is to go through it. And also honoring your value, honoring your worth, standing firm in that. If you don't protect it, no one else will. If you don't recognize your worth, no one else will. If you don't believe in yourself, that's not entirely true, right? Like, this is not entirely true because, of course, we have like our beautiful friends, and yes, a lot of times partners that do believe in us when we don't believe in ourselves, right? So that is a beautiful thing. So that's not entirely true, but like for the most part, it's really important that we believe in ourselves and recognize our own value and our own worth unconditionally as a part of our identity and as a part of the way we relate to ourselves and others and the world. And so, again, beautiful, beautiful medicine, beautiful, beautiful gifts that I received today. And again, this was a part of why I wanted to do this fast, because I knew that there were things that I was shedding that really needed to surface, that really were ready to be released, because honey, I am birthing into something so profound. One of the songs that came up recently, in I heard for the first time in the last 2 weeks. Oh my God, I don't know the name, but part of the lyrics are, I'm getting ready. God, like, I'm getting ready for something I've never seen. I'm getting ready for something I've never heard. Um, yeah, I don't know the song. I'm so sorry. I'll have to Google it and like link it in the description or whatever. But um, that's where I'm at. I am birthing into something new. I'm birthing into a new chapter. I'm birthing into finally embodying and being the version of myself that I have really always wanted to be, but also have been working to be for the last 4 years, 5 years, 4 or 5 years specifically, and living really the life that I want to be living. And so I'm stepping into that, and part of that is, okay, there's a couple of things that really need to be completed and fully integrated and fully realized and fully brought into wholeness and integration and full healing, in order to hold embody the vibration and the identity of that is needed and required of what I'm stepping into. So, all right. I think that's enough. I know this is really long. Thank you for listening. I love you so much if you've listened to this. Wow, you are a warrior. Thank you for witnessing me. I love you. Here's to day 5 of a 7-day fast. Wow, what a profound experience this has been. Wow. I love you. Bye.